Well, happy Monday afternoon, April 5th, guys. It is I, Brandon, here, and we're here to do another album review. And today it is ACDC with the famous Back in Black. So, Back in Black was released in 1980, and it was the first album which featured a new vocalist, Brian Johnson, after the death of the late great Bon Scott. The album had featured, and many of the songs on here were worked with Scott on lead vocals and contributing different compositions for different songs that were on this record after they had released Highway to Hell in early 1979, before Scott had tragically passed away too soon. Uh, the album opened obviously with Hell's Bells, which and all these songs were great in terms of just being a great playable album from start to finish. But in my fourth album review here this week, I get kind of critical of the album just because of the fact it is ACDC after all. And while they managed to do a good job of, even though they change lead singers, they don't lose their sound and they continue to be what they were, a raw and live rock band, a hard rock band, as a matter of fact. They really they continued to, they had always, right from the beginning, everything ACDC had ever done always sounded identical. And I feel like that had always alienated some people. There were other people who had bought, instead of albums like Back in Black and Highway to Hell, there were multiple people that instead bought albums like Night at the Opera, Led Zeppelin 4, Hotel California, Toys in the Attic, to name a few, Dark Side of the Moon, just simply because of the fact that, you know, they had great melodies on them. They had great vocals. The lyrics had great stories. But Back in Black was really the first ACDC album that from start to finish it had one great song after another. From 1 through 10, the tracks in order: Hell's Bells, Shoot to Thrill, What Would You Do for Money, Honey, Giving the Dog a Bone, Let Me Put My Love Into You, Back in Black, You Shook Me All Night Long, Have a Drink on Me, Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution. And sometimes where you had, I'd like to take a look at the final track on the album for a minute. Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution. The first one, Hell's Bells. They were a little bit too preachy about the piss off your parents with hard rock and roll culture, anti-establishment culture, and just because people were looking to party and listen to hard rock and roll didn't mean that they wanted to be preached at. AC/DC became kind of a billboard for alcohol, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And that isn't exactly what people were listening to the music for. They just went hand in hand with those activities. But the album overall, I would give it a 4 star out of 5 stars if you were to do like an all music rating for the album. Angus's guitar playing is pretty tasty on here. Brian Johnson really could scream, and that's what AC/DC needed so that they didn't have to water down and change their sound drastically. But realistically, it fails to be a 5 star album just because of the simple fact that, you know, not a lot of creativity in giving things a lot of difference on the record. It had just a little too much continuity, and so that's why I marked this down from being a complete 5 stars. I hope you found that album review positive, and please hit that bell for notifications. Leave me some comments below on maybe some other albums you'd like me to do a review on, and we'll come back and check it out in the future. Have a great Monday, everybody.